Hey, Kyle, you want to talk about some NFL draft prospects?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. What time is it? It's game time.
Joe, it's time for us to sneak a little NFL draft content in front of next week's season opener, which is 1 week from today, between the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Can't wait. And first of all, the haters are furious. They said we wouldn't talk about NFL draft prospects on this podcast, but here we are going to talk about three of them. Second of all, you have some big personal news as it relates to the NFL draft space, and nice opportunity for you. We haven't mentioned it here on the podcast. I feel like this is a great opportunity to mention your news.
Yeah, so I am going to be the NFL draft lead over at 3013, Mike Tannenbaum's group. They have an amazing network of NFL executives and coaches and players and contributors and media personalities that all pour into that. And I'm very fired up for the opportunity to head up their NFL draft efforts this year. So if you're familiar with the NDT scouting version of Kyle Crabbs, where you do a prospectus every year, they're going to get a prospectus up on the site. There's some written content. There's going to be rankings and mocks and all of that throughout the course of not only the draft season, but starting in September. So we're going to hit the ground running. Been doing some prep work the last 2 weeks for that. And we're going to apply some of that effort into what we're talking about here today on the show.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm excited that this is going to nudge us into some draft content sooner. We hope to make kind of a weekly episode of talking prospects throughout the course of the regular season. And little tease, Monday, heard there's a mock draft coming. Heard we're going to do it here on this podcast on Monday. So the draft stuff is coming on Locked On NFL Scouting. Kyle Crabbs, we got three fun football players to discuss today. We're going to talk about Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan, Colorado football player Travis Hunter, and LSU offensive tackle Will Campbell. We both independently watched the film. I have no idea what you think of these players. You have no idea what I think of these players. Let's talk about him. Mason Graham, Michigan, up first.
All right, so Mason is a junior defensive tackle from the University of Michigan, 6'0", so 6'3", 320 pounds is what he's listed at on the Michigan roster. Was born on September 2nd, 2003. So
Pause. Thank you, Michigan, for just putting that there in the bio, making it
in the bio and make it so much easier instead of having to look in 18 different databases and Twitter search your name and happy birthday to see what date somebody wished you happy birthday on social media. All the dumb stuff that you had to do to find a birthday.
Right. Boy, when I saw that, I lit up. I said, thank you.
For consensus 4-star prospect. Not consensus 4-star prospect. He was a 3-star prospect for ESPN, but Rivals and 247 Sports both had him as a 4-star prospect. He's from the great state of California. He was ranked as the 28th player in the state of California, according to the 247 Sports composite. 2-year contributor to your Letterman. The closest I got for snaps for him was around 800 career snaps to this point in time on defense, across 27 games and 15 starts.
I think I mentioned he's got that wrestling background in high school, right? Everybody loves that.
Yeah, it shows up too.
Yeah. Okay. Getting into the film, I really like Mason Graham. Very, very likable football player. I think he's a very instinctive guy. I think that's one of my favorite things about him is his feel for where the ball's going to be. Does such a good job of feeling blocks, leveraging his gap, leveraging the ball, being in position to make plays, reading pass run, getting into his pass rush. I just think the instincts initially pop. And there's a lot to get into with him in terms of physical gifts and why he wins and his technique. But when I thought about my prevailing thought from watching Mason Graham, I thought that he was just a very, very instinctive football player.
Yeah. Impacts the game in a lot of ways. They line him up on the nose. They line him up in the A-gaps. They line him up at 3-tech. They line him up in 4 eyes and head up on offensive tackles. They do some of their load fronts where they put both defensive tackles on the same side of the center and run twist and stunt games. And he's lined up at a 3 technique on the right side. And he ends up rushing the passer and looping all the way around and hitting the quarterback, looping around the left side, right? Like just an unreal range versus where his alignments are versus where he ends up attacking protections in the pass game. And one of the big talking points and knocks on Mason Graham is going to be the sack production, which I find cute because my comp for this, I have a comp.
Oh, I do too. Don't say it yet.
Okay.
Wait, I feel like you want to say it. I feel like I'm
derailing. Yeah, I mean, we should probably tackle that now because we're here.
Okay. All right. Who's your comp?
Who's your comp? Since you were very territorial.
Well, because I struggled with this. I struggled with this a lot.
I did not. I thought this was
my first guy that came to mind, I was like, wow, those body types are not the same at all. So I had to nix it. And the guy that I went with is Kenny Clark.
Okay. Who is the one that you nixed? Who was the place? Cam Hayward?
Yeah, but he's not 6'5", 295 with long arms.
This is Christian Wilkins.
I had that down, but I was afraid that you would. I didn't know if you would align with
this. This is exactly who this player is. The pass rush disruption is at a much higher rate than what the sack production has been. The point of attack usage with his hands and block deconstruction is exactly like Christian Wilkins. Christian Wilkins came through the draft process at the combine. He was 6'3", 315. Mason Graham's 6'3", 320. You see I don't think he has elite athletic, like explosive measures, but he plays his rear end off. He plays so hard. He's very precise with his hands. I actually think he's more developed than what Christian Wilkins was coming out of Clemson.
I'd agree with that.
I think you take like the 2021 version of Christian Wilkins, and that's what I think Mason Graham is right now, with another year of college left to play.
Yeah, and the first game I watched was Minnesota, and the guy's got a club on his hand.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, what happens when you don't have a club on your hand?
Great lunch pail picture being painted right off the jump. Unblockable against Washington.
Killed him, yeah.
Absolutely destroyed him inside. Run game, pass rush, doesn't matter. He's got a big variety of pass rush moves. Even the way he kind of plays off of contact when they run stunts and stuff like that, it echoes so much of Christian Wilkins, and that's a $27 million a year player. You can talk about the contract all you want, but I think the way that he profiles, the fact that people are going to say, yeah, but the sack production, watch him rush the passer. Understand that they ran a lot of rotation for guys on that Michigan defensive line. I have zero concerns about his ability to rush the passer versus what the box score will tell you his pass rush ability is.
Yeah, I don't either. I after I watched the film, I looked at the stats and I was like, oh, well, that's surprising. He doesn't have more sacks than that. But I was like, I don't actually care. And in a lot of games, he didn't play 40, 50, 60 snaps most games. And Michigan got off. Michigan not only rotates, but they get off the field, right? There's not a lot of snaps to take.
Right.
So I think we see him very similarly. I talked about the feel for the ball. I love how he works to the edges of blocks, slippery, powerful, and explosive. Really good balance and control through contact. You mentioned the lateral quickness and that ability to, line up as a 3-tech and attack the opposite A gap. It's incredible. And he's so tight with it, and he's able to really turn and carry speed, which I really appreciated. I thought his best moves were his club rip and his hump move. He's also got that spin. He was able to, he uncorked that against Washington.
He's got a really nice lift too, where he tacks the wrist when you throw hands on him, and he'll grab the wrist and lift you up, and he'll get your shoulders turned and get your arm at the air, and then he'll dip underneath of it and rush around you too.
And I think some of his best work does come on some of those stunts where he's so slippery around those corners in ways that you
Mhm.
maybe don't really expect it. And of course, he can just cover a lot of ground very, very quickly. I guess when it comes to concerns, I wrote 2 things down. One would be length. I don't know that he's got short arms. I just don't think it's going to be like a player that we look at and say, this is a plus length player.
It's another reason why I had Wilkins down. Wilkins was 21st percentile in arm length and 31st percentile for wingspan.
That's why Kenny Clark's also like 32 and a quarter
Yeah.
inch arm. So that was part of that. And then I don't know that I call this a weakness, but you mentioned just a variety of fronts and alignments that they play him in. His stance was kind of hard for me at times to figure out. Like a lot of times, very much kind of froggy with some things, and you can tell he's trying to 2-gap, and it's like, what's the right stance for you to maximize this physical profile that you offer? Again, I'm not really calling that a weakness, but I think it's something that can be improved. Is Wink Martindale's their defensive coordinator? Is that a real thing?
I believe that's an accurate statement. Yeah.
So I'm excited for that evolution, but also like where he stabilizes in that capacity and what it unlocks maybe for him as a true like one-on-one penetration style player.
Oh, one more quick thought. I know we got to get to break, but one more quick thought on his pass rush productivity. Across 727 defensive snaps over the last 2 seasons, a pressure rate of 10.7%. Not great, but on third down, it's over 15%.
Knows how to dial it up.
Yep. So
okay. So we like him. He's going to be a high grade for me, I'm sure.
He's a very high grade for me. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Travis Hunter. A lot to talk about with him here on the other side of it, folks. Be sure to stick with us. Want to get in shape but having trouble staying motivated? Make 5-hour energy shots part of your lifestyle and get the energy boost you need to get fit. We all know you sometimes don't want to go to the gym. Well, take a 5-hour energy shot to give you the feeling and alertness so you can get to the gym. 5-hour Energy is the brand that hardworking people like you have trusted for over 20 years to give them the alert, energized feeling they need to get through a busy and hectic day. You always know where to find the 5-hour energy shots. It's right at the cash register at nearly every convenience, drug, and grocery store nationwide. Stock up on money-saving multi-packs to make sure you never run out of delicious, energizing 5-hour energy shots. Go to 5hourenergy.com. That is the number 5hourenergy.com and get some 5-hour energy products today. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid through September 30th on one order and cannot be used with any other promotions. This code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today.
So as we start Travis Hunter, I have to ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you think he's going to be better on offense or defense?
I don't know. I think the good news is that he's really exciting in either spot, right? Like just a really rare football player. And I mean, I could talk in circles on this because I don't have convictions on it. And maybe the answer is both. And I feel bad saying that because that's really rare and like that doesn't happen. It's not a thing. And I don't want to take away from, maybe the ceiling that he has if he were to specialize in one position. But boy, oh boy, you can see the path at corner and at receiver for him to be a big time impact player. He's a rare guy, right? Like that's the kind of the vibe that I had coming out of the tape. We'll talk about the skills, offense, defense, but like he's just rare. He's a really rare athlete that has such a good feel for the game. And he blends that with a dynamic athletic profile that just leads to a lot of big plays.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing for me with Travis and watching him on both sides of the ball was the movement skills. I think he's longer than he is tall.
6'1", 185 is what he's listed at, right?
Yeah. So Travis Hunter Jr., University of Colorado, was originally at Jackson State, transferred to Colorado this past season, missed about a month with an injury suffered during the Colorado State game, plays on both sides of the ball, plays corner, plays wide receiver. Offensively, he's got like a 77% catch rate on targets in his 2 seasons.
And these aren't thinking dunks, boys and girls.
No. And then defensively, Really good in the side saddle, really good with his eyes in the backfield. I think he's got a really good feel for zone and picking up routes and spacing the field. I think he's got really good transitional quickness, some of the loosest hips that I've seen in the defensive back in a long time. I think that's the number one thing about him as a DB that stands up is like his body control and how he opens himself and gets in and out of transitions while playing zone and understanding I have to leverage multiple routes and then break on the football. He gets some unreal breaks on the ball. And he does so while spacing that's not cheating to the guy that's going to get the target. Like I think he's got pretty good integrity on how he splits his zone responsibilities. And it's tough because I think he'd probably be a better defensive back with his skill set and his length. But wide receivers and what they're getting paid, I wouldn't get mad if you ultimately decide, hey, I want to play wide receiver in the NFL.
The ball skills are special, right? Like I felt like, man, and he didn't play that much, right? Like what is the snaps on defense? I got to know. 592 snaps last year for Colorado. He comes out of nowhere sometimes to make plays on the ball. Like you don't, if you're a quarterback, there are players that you are not accounting are going to invade the catch point, but Travis Henry gets there.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and you kind of peg him as a man guy just based on the athleticism, but like his eyes in the backfield working in the throwing lanes is special. Being able to adjust on the fly and squeeze routes and then just get to the ball. Like those big plays on defense are big. Unbelievable ball skills. What he did against UCLA, was there one against, was it Washington? Was it Arizona? Where Washington, he played Washington State as well. Insane breaks on the ball. I've never seen anything like it.
That PBU that he had on that backline cross against Arizona was
sick.
Unreal.
The pick against UCLA, sick. Like what?
But even the ball skills show up as a receiver on the vertical stuff too. Like the adjustments to the ball is like, man, he picked that up really well in flight.
Okay, so I agree with you there, but wasn't it interesting to see on a lot of those deep shots, he gets so far behind the defense and then throws are underthrown and he's like literally turns around and catches it like it's a punt.
Yeah, it happened more than once.
I was like, man, this is like a weird amount of times I'm seeing this show up on this tape. But yeah, dude, he's so explosive and like his ability to like go get the ball as well is pretty special on offense with like even some like congested areas where there's traffic or, the throw takes him into a contested catch point. He's a dog at the catch point, man. Like, and it's the athleticism, but there's like just a lot of skill and know-how for like how to attack the football and how to put yourself in a position to make a play on that ball. And then my goodness, with the ball in his hands, he's electric.
Yeah. So he played 292 snaps in coverage last year.
It's coming out of nowhere, man. Out of nowhere. And almost felt like at times I was like, he's baiting throws. But then he
1,000,000%. I think he understands. I think he's got a very good field vision, and I think he does bait throws.
So, like, I guess if I had a knock on him, it's just tackling. He's like a drag down tackle. He doesn't miss tackles, but he's definitely a latch and drag down type guy, wiry type frame. But do you think he needs to pick a spot? Like, is the NFL such an advanced level of football that the specialization for individual positions is so significant that we can romanticize about this guy making an impact on both sides of the ball, but in reality, it doesn't happen, and that's for a reason.
I think it's probably realistic to expect him to play on one side of the ball and have a primary position early. I think if you try to have your cake and eat it too with him too fast, that's first-class ticket to not setting him up for success.
Don't you feel like the easiest path to do that is to have him play corner and situationally have him on the field offensively?
Theoretically, yeah.
I think because I don't know if you can do the other way around. You can't situationally play him on defense, right? That's weird.
Right.
Maybe it's not. I don't know.
Right. I don't know. I think his blend of skills has the potential to be a more special player on defense. With the hips and the vision and the length that he has. Again, he's only listed at 6'1", 185, but if he doesn't have 32.5-inch arms, I'd be stunned. Like he's got good length. You see it. And it's the hips and the feet for me. Is it's like guys like that are born to play in space as a zone corner and make all kinds of plays on the ball.
I think we can agree on one thing. Keep this man away from the Arizona Cardinals.
Hold on, let me check my. We're good.
Don't do it.
Don't
do it.
We're good.
Don't do it to my guy. And that's unfair. It's a different regime, but
yes, it is.
The joke still lands. Okay, highly graded prospect. We joked about the order of how we have these guys ranked in the pre-show. I don't know, man. There's such a rareness about Travis Hunter that you could talk me into it. And there's such a translatability about Mason Graham that I love. And like, he's exactly the type of defensive tackle that I love. So I don't know. I don't have to make a decision today. They're both going to be really high on my board.
So I think
you do have to make a decision.
Yeah, I do have to make a decision because I got to do a top 50 rankings here in like 2 weeks. I think it's very easy to fall in love with what Travis Hunter has the potential to be. And I think he is a more rare athlete and product. But you talked about the translatability of Mason Graham. I think there's very little guesswork.
Right.
So if that matters to you, I think that's how you can justify going at either end of that decision if you had to pick either or.
All right. We got another prospect to get to. Will Campbell
of
LSU. We'll talk about him on the other side of it, folks. Be sure to stick with us. Football is here, folks. You know you want to get to some games across the country, and sometimes that purchasing process can be stressful. It doesn't have to be. Download the Gametime app. Gametime is a fast and easy way to purchase tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. I love the app because it's easy to navigate. They give you flash deals. They specialize in last-minute tickets, which is super cool. You don't always know if you're going to be able to make it to an event. You can make that choice last minute with Gametime. Go in there. You're going to get some great deals on last-minute tickets. They also give you a seat view, and you can choose to look at the prices as all-in, which I also love. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time.
Will Campbell, junior offensive tackle, LSU Tigers. Played right tackle in high school when he first got on the field as a freshman. Started for 4 seasons for his high school program. 6'6", 323 pounds. This is entering into his 3rd year as a starter. He was a part of the first true freshman combo of offensive tackles that the LSU program has ever had at the same time as starters. So like there's a whole deal with him and what he has been. Last year he wore a patch for the 7 jersey for the LSU program for the best player in the state of Louisiana, out of the state of Louisiana on the team. So he's a part of that lineage as far as that's a very prestigious honor to be bestowed on LSU players. And he had that last year as a sophomore, and now is coming into what is a really good offensive tackle class between him and his teammate Emory Jones. And you got Kelvin Banks over at the University of Texas. There's a guy over at Minnesota that has a little bit of buzz that I'm interested in getting eyes on.
Saw that name. I don't want to say it.
Well, we'll get there. The point being this, it looks like a really good offensive tackle class, which is great news because we need more good offensive linemen in the NFL.
Yeah. I like Will Campbell. I feel like this is probably the player we can poke the most holes in guys that we're going to talk about today. Will Campbell, I almost feel like the best parts of his game we don't get to see that often. I think he's really good in the run game. Like his ability to create some displacement, stay grounded, leverage the ground, and really move bodies, but being coordinated and controlled while doing so is really good. And I like some of his work climbing the second level and working in space. I wish that LSU would run it a little bit more to unlock some of that. I think in pass protection, he's a guy that has a lot of upside, but I feel like his hands need a lot of work. Like I want to see him become a lot more consistent with using his hands independently. He's more of a catcher than a punter to me whenever I watch him in pass protection. And I think he's another guy that might not have plus length. And I thought some of those issues with hands showed up particularly against Jared Verse and Dallas Turner, where I thought there was just instances where they were able to win with first contact and get into his pads and like set up their rush and get around him. Now, I think he's a good athlete. I think he can frame. I think sometimes he does play a little narrow in pass pro, and particularly his stance is a little bit narrow for me. So I think there's some minor tweaks here, but there's a really good ceiling that I think stems from his athleticism, from his power, from his core strength, from how he can work in the run game. I just think there's some things that I want to see him clean up with his hands and his feet when it comes to pass protection.
It's funny you talk about his snap distribution. He's played over 1,600 snaps in 2 seasons for LSU, and almost 1,000 of those, 985, were in pass protection, and 643 of those were in run blocking. So there's like a 65% split where we are passing, and some of those runs, let's be honest, you had a dual threat player at quarterback last year.
Right.
Where, he's taken off and leaving the Florida defense in the dust, running by guys for 50-yard touchdowns, right? On scrambles, on design pass plays. So only credited with 24 total hurries over the last 2 seasons. So despite all of the questions that exist, and some of that's schematic, right? Some of that is level of competition. I think you invoked the right games in which I thought some of the things that did kind of show up with him. I don't think he's the most, how do I say this? He's dense, like probably what, Skoronski from a density perspective. I'm not saying that's who he is as a player, but just look at his body type.
Yeah, he carries if he's 6'6", 320, he carries 6'6", 320, kind of similar to like what is Skoronski, like 6'3", 6'4", 305, 310. Like I can understand what you mean by that.
So, and I don't know, for offensive linemen, I'm a big body type guy, because it affects how your hinges work, affects how you're able to drop anchor, how flexible you are. And the reason I invoke the name Skoronski is Skoronski was a guy at Northwestern who followed the footsteps of Rashawn Slater, right? And I think there was a very dramatic difference between the body control, the fluidity, and the flexibility of Rashawn Slater and Peter Skoronski. You think that's a fair statement to make?
Yeah, I like that.
And I think Campbell trends more on the Skoronski side of that spectrum. As far as, I don't think he's the most fluid, dynamic, body control type of player to win at all different kinds of angles. Now, he occupies a lot of space. He's got really good power. I think he frames things by and large very well.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, he plays with a stout anchor. He can stand guys up when they try and convert power on him, and he eats up a lot of that power. But like you said, I don't think he's mastered his strike timing just yet.
Right.
You know, I think he relies on his core strength as a guy that is so dense at 320 plus to eat up some of that power. And I just think that there's a lot of levels to unlock with him still. And I don't think anything that he has athletically is going to be restrictive that would prevent him from being that kind of player.
Right.
But I just look at the way that he wins and I'm like, all right, I really want to see, like Joe Alt kind of did this. Joe Alt had a very different journey to going into his last year, a former tight end. But Joe Alt in his last year, I thought really unlocked a lot of new dynamics to his play and took himself to a whole new stratosphere where he was the top offensive tackle in the class. I think Will Campbell, right now, I'd probably lean towards him still being in that stratosphere of top offensive tackle, but I think there's a leap like what Joe Alt made last year that he is capable of making.
I think that's what makes him exciting.
Yes.
Is there's a lot to like, and there's still ceiling to develop into, and he's going to have that opportunity to showcase it this year. So yeah, this year's going to obviously for every player, it's going to set their floor and ceiling as a prospect. But I feel like for him, it could really put him in like, okay, this is a top 10 offensive tackle, or, maybe 20, 30 spots after that. but a good prospect. It's interesting. We didn't talk about him at all. I feel like you are aligning a lot with what I saw here on the film with him.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said coming into this. I think is a totally fair assessment of who he is as a player. A lot to like, and tools that you can't teach, and a build that is prototypical.
Yeah.
So that's
well.
Go ahead.
That was fun, Kyle Crabbs.
Yeah, we should do that again.
Yeah. Tell me 3 more players to watch for next week, dude.
Do you want to pick some? You pick them now?
No.
Why not?
Hey, you better give me some defensive lineman. That's good. That's my only request.
All right. So let's do. And this is fun because there's games in like 2 days. It's like the first week 1 of college football. Let's do. I'm going to skip a quarterback. Let's do Ollie Gordon, running back, Oklahoma State.
Okay.
I'm hand selecting. You said you wanted do you want the interior defensive lineman or an edge guy?
Give me an edge.
All right, so we'll go edge group. Let's go with James Pierce from University of Tennessee.
How about a wide receiver? Oh, no, you can pick whatever you want.
You want a wide receiver? I'll give you a wide receiver. Let's go. Let's watch this Arizona kid, McMillan.
All right.
I need to figure out how to say his first name because I want to respect his name and get it right.
All right.
So we're going to go McMillan, wide receiver, Arizona. We're going to go James Pierce, edge rusher, University of Tennessee. And we're going to go Ollie Gordon, running back, Oklahoma State next week.
All right.
There you go. That's going to do it for us here on Locked On NFL Scouting. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He's Joe Marino. We appreciate you guys checking out the show. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Make it a great rest of your day. We are out of here.